This is the Crochet Wine Bottle cover pattern I've come up with, and as you can see I've made one with buttons and I've made one just plain, and I'll get a close-up so you can see how the pattern looks. And it's just done in single crochet, and it's up to you whether you want to add buttons or just leave it as plain. But they're really nice as a gift, and you can do them in Christmas colours if it's Christmas time, or if it's a birthday you can change the colour. Here is a tip for you. Make sure that you make the wine bottle cover first and then buy the bottle of wine that'll fit into it, or make sure that the circumference of the bottle is 11 inches or 28 centimetres. So, meaning that your bottle of wine is measuring 11 inches or 28 centimetres around here. The materials required is 1 bottle of wine. That's very important. You'll need that. And for the yarn, I've used Red Heart with Love. And the colour I've used is hot pink, and I've already got one of the wine bottle covers made out of this ball, and this is how much is left. So I think I could probably get another 2 to 3 out of it. I've used a 5mm hook. I've needed 39.5 inches or 100 centimetres of ribbon, and you can use any ribbon you like. I'm using a nice gold one. You'll need your craft scissors and a yarn needle. Now, if you're going to be adding buttons on, you need an assortment of buttons, and these buttons are from Sullivan's, and they're all different shades of one colour. Whoops. And you'll need your cotton thread and a sewing needle to sew those buttons on. Measurements are the height and the circumference are the same, so 11 inches or 28 centimetres for both the circumference and height. We'll be starting at the bottom of the Crochet Wine Bottle cover. So this is our start here, and we'll be working around in continuous rounds like this. Now, one other material I forgot to mention that you'll need to be using is a stitch marker. You can also use a safety pin or a scrap piece of yarn if you don't have a stitch marker. And you'll be using this to place into the first stitch of each round. Okay, so to get started on the wine bottle cover, you'll chain on 3 chain stitches. So I've got 1, 2, 3 there. And then we're going to join into the first chain stitch, with a slip stitch. And that's going to form a ring. It's a very small ring, but it's there. Now we'll be working over this tail in the next round. So for round 1, working over the tail and into the ring, we'll be doing 6 single crochet stitches. So there's our first one, and I'm working over the tail as I go. Now, because that's our first single crochet, I'm going to use the stitch marker and place it into that stitch, just so I can keep a track of where the first stitch is on each round so I don't get lost. So there's one, then into the ring, working over the tail, there's 2 single crochet, three single crochet into the ring, working over the tail, 4 single crochet, 5, 6. So that's the end of round 1. Now for round 2, we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch around to the end. So at the moment we've got 6 stitches, and that was the end of round 1. So for round 2, take out your marker and we're not joining at the end of rounds. We're just working straight into that first stitch with a single crochet, and because that's our first stitch, we place the marker back in, and we're doing 2 single crochet into each stitch. So there's my first one done, and a second one into that same stitch, and we'll do that right around. So into the next stitch we'll do 2 single crochet stitches. So there's 1, 2, into the next stitch, 1, 2. So continue making 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch around, and I'll see you at the end. And at the end of round 2 you should have 12 stitches. I'm at the end of round 2 and I've just made my last 2 single crochet stitches into the last stitch there just before the marker. So for round 3, take the marker out and we're going to do 1 single crochet into the next stitch, which is the first stitch. So there's 1 single crochet there. Place our marker into that stitch because that's our first stitch on this round. And then into the next stitch we'll do 2 single crochet stitches. 1, 2, and into the next stitch we'll do 1 single crochet, into the next stitch 2 single crochet stitches into that stitch. So 1, 2, and that's going to be our sequence right around. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and repeat that right around until you get to this stitch just before the marker. And at the end of round 3 you'll have 18 stitches. I'm at the end of round 3 and I've just made my last 2 single crochet stitches into this stitch just before the marker. And for round 4, take the marker out, and we're going to do 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. We'll do our first single crochet and just put the marker back into that one. That's the first stitch on this round. And then into the next stitch, 1 single crochet. So I've done 1, 2. Now we're going to do 2 single crochet into the next stitch. There's 1 and a second one into the same stitch. So 2 single crochet into that stitch. Now this will be our sequence right around, which is 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. So there's our first and second one. So you're going to repeat that right around for this round. So 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. And at the end of round 4 you'll have 24 stitches. I'm at the end of round 4 and I've done my last 2 single crochet stitches into this last stitch just before the marker. So for round 5, take the marker out, and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So we'll do our first one. There's 1 single crochet into the next stitch. That's our first stitch. Place the marker back in. 1 single crochet to the second stitch, and 1 single crochet into the third stitch, and then into the next stitch we'll be doing 2 single crochet stitches. So there's our first one, and there's our second one. So this will be the sequence for this round. So 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, and then 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch, and repeat that sequence right around until you get to the end, and at the end of round 5 you'll have 30 stitches. I'm at the end of round 5 and I've made my last 2 single crochet stitches into the last stitch just before the marker. So for round 6, take the marker out, and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So we'll do our first single crochet stitch there, place the marker back in, so there's 1 single crochet, then into the next stitch, 2 into the next, is our third, into the next, our 4th single crochet, and then into the next stitch 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. So there's 1 and 2 into that stitch, and that'll be our sequence for this round. So 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches, and then 2 single crochet into the next stitch. Repeat that right around until the end, and at the end of round 6 you should have 36 stitches. I'm at the end of round 6 and I've made my last 2 single crochet stitches into this last stitch just before the marker. Now at this point I like to tighten up this center yarn tail, because once you start working your sides up it's hard to get to, so I just give it a pull there using your yarn needle. Just going to weave that in around the center stitches. And that'll tighten that up. Now then I just skip a loop there and go back in the opposite direction, just to make sure it's really secure. And then you can trim that off. So after you've tightened your center yarn tail and weaved that in, we'll be working on making the divide from the bottom to the sides of the wine bottle cover. And what I mean is, if you have a look here, so we've made the bottom, and now we'll be working on making this, which is the divide, and then we'll be working up the sides. So to make that divide for round 7, we'll take out our marker and we're going to do a slip stitch into that first stitch. And then we'll just place our marker back in there, into that slip stitch. Now we'll be working in the back loops only for this round now, and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each stitch around to the end, but just in the back loops. So here's the front loop, there's the back loop, so you go in there, and do a single crochet, and that leaves the front loop there. So working into the back loops of each stitch around, making a single crochet into each back loop of each stitch. So continue to do that right around, and you can see it's forming there, the divide, and I'll show you how to end off here. I'm at the end of round 7. I've just done my last single crochet into the back loop of the last stitch just before the marker. Now to finish off this round 7, we're just going to do a single crochet into the back loop of that slip stitch there. Now we're just going to pop the marker back in. Okay, so for rounds 8 to 40, you're going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch around to the end. And you won't be working into the back loops anymore, you'll just be doing your single crochet stitches as usual. So this is round 8. And basically that's all you'll be doing for all of those rounds, 8 to round 40. Now here's a tip. As you work through these rounds, every couple of rounds, if you're going to add buttons, add them after you've done a few or a couple of rounds, because it's easier to get the needle back and forth rather than trying to dive down through a long project to try and sew back and forth. It's easier to put your buttons on as you've got a couple of rows. So basically this is all you'll be doing now. Just 1 single crochet into each stitch around for rounds 8 to 40. So I'll see you at the end of round 40. Now I'm at the end of round 40, and this is what your work will look like. And I've made my last single crochet stitch into the stitch just before the marker. Now for round 41 we'll be making the spaces for the ribbon to weave through. So take your marker out and we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So here's our first single crochet, and placing the marker back in. And then into the next stitch, a single crochet. Then we'll be doing 2 chain stitches, so 1, 2, and then we'll skip 2 stitches here, and then we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So skip, skip, and a single crochet into the next stitch, and a single crochet into the next stitch. And as you can see there, that's created the space that we'll be weaving the ribbon through later. Okay, so now we'll chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2, and then 2 single crochet, or 1 single crochet there, and 1 single crochet into the next one. So that'll be our sequence right around. So chain 2, skip 2, and then 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So repeat that right around. So I'm up to nearly the end of round 41. I've made my 2 chain stitches, and we're going to skip these 2 and make a single crochet into where that marker is. And now placing that marker back in. And now we'll have our 9 spaces around the work. Now for round 42, we'll be doing 1 single crochet into each stitch and 2 single crochet into each chain 2 space. So the next stitch along is a single crochet, so you just do a single crochet into there. And here's our space, and we're going to put 2 single crochet stitches into the space. And you can see the space a bit better there. Now we've got these 2 single crochet stitches we made here. So we put a single crochet into each of those single crochet stitches, and then we've got another space here, and we put 2 single crochet stitches into the space. Now here's another 2 single crochet here, so we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch into each of those, and here's a space, so 2 single crochet into the space, and this is the sequence that you'll be using right around for round 42. So I'll see you at the end. I'm at the end of round 42, and I've made my last 2 single crochet stitches into that last space there. So for rounds 43 to 49, we'll be just doing 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and I'll show you on this bottle here. So we've just done our spaces here, and now we'll be completing this part, the top part of the bottle cover. So you take your marker out, and on all the rounds, all these following rounds, just remember to put your marker back into the first stitch that you make on each round. So there's our first single crochet to start off round 43. Place your marker in, and simply just 1 single crochet right around, 1 single crochet into each stitch right around, and there's no joining at the end of rounds. We're still working in continuous rounds. So continue on doing this for rounds 43 to 49, and then I'll see you at the end of round 49. I'm at the end of round 49, and as you can see, this is what it's looking like now. And I've made my last single crochet stitch into the stitch just before the marker. So we're up to round 50 now, which is the top edge, and this is the last round, and I'll just show you on this cover here. This is what our edge will look like. Okay, and that's very easy to do. We're simply just going to do a slip stitch into each stitch around. So take your marker out and make a slip stitch, and just place the marker back into that slip stitch. And then just slip stitch into each stitch right around, and this just gives it a really nice tidy edge. This is probably one of my favourite ways of doing an edge, so that you can see it there. So continue to do that right around, and I'll see you at the end. So I'm at the end of round 50, and I've made my last slip stitch into the stitch just before the marker. So now we're ready to finish off. So cut your yarn and leaving enough of a tail to weave back into the work. Just finish off there, and then get your yarn needle and weave it through, weave your yarn tail through the needle. And what we're going to do to hide that knot there is take the marker out of the first slip stitch there, and we're going to go in to the middle of that slip stitch, and that will pull that knot down, and you can barely see it now. And then you can just take your needle down through the stitches this way. So I'm only going to take it down so far, just before our spaces. And then turn your work around this way and just skip that loop and take it back up. And then you can trim your yarn off. And that's our yarn tail weaved in. Now you can find the back of the work by finding two spaces that are uneven. So there it is there, and that's where we want to start weaving our ribbon in. So get your ribbon and take it in one side and through that side, and then push it through the next chain space. I know this looks a little bit rough. I'm going to fix my ribbon up afterwards. And then push it through the next chain space. And you're basically just going to do this until you come to the front. Now both of the ends should pop out at the front through the same space. There you go. And then you're just going to pull on the ends until they're even, till those ends are even. And then you can place your wine bottle in. I'll just move the camera up here. And you're going to tie a bow, and that gathers up the top there. And that's how you make your crochet wine bottle cover.